Hey, everybody. Welcome to Spin is a four-letter word, the Maroon PR podcast, all things public relations, marketing, et cetera, et cetera. As those of you who've been listening and watching, this year we took a little twist on it. We like to be known as the agency you like to have a beer with, so why not be a podcast you like to have a beer with? So we all have our beers with us. Cheers. And our guest today is Terry Hasseltine. Let me put my glasses on because this cat's got titles. He's an old friend with a lot of titles. I don't want to screw it up. He'll be mad at me. Terry Hasseltine is the executive director of the Maryland Sports Commission since 2008, president of the Sports and Entertainment Corporation of Maryland. That was established in 2019. And he founded Team Maryland. MarylandSports.us is where you can learn all about him, his amazing organization, and him and his team bringing events to our state, generating revenue, generating tax dollars, building excitement for our state. It's really something else. Terry, thank you.
My pleasure.
Thanks for being here.
And John, welcome back.
Oh, yeah.
You've been on the last
I've been
two
on
episodes.
A reprieve of a couple of podcasts. It's good to be back.
I hope part-time?
Yeah, I did.
I lost my host.
I think there might have been golf involved. I'm not sure. But I'm back, baby, and I hope I didn't screw up the Open. Take these off now. So, Terry, first of all, tell everybody a little bit about the work of your organization. There's a couple of components to it, right? And how does it all come together? What are you doing right now? What's a day in the life of Terry Hasseltine?
Well, obviously looking at the review of heads and beds, food and belly, gas and cars, credit card and cash counters, and butts and seats. That's really the mechanism in which our industry is measured on, and we do it through sports. So anything that is youth and amateur all the way up to the professional ranks of sports. So that can go from everything like the Big English Premier Summer, tournament that we have going on at FedEx Field here at the end of the month, July 30th, or everything to the 5-star, to the cycling class, which are your elite premier international sporting events, all the way down to your, elite tournaments, Columbia Invitational, and your lacrosse tournaments and your basketball tournaments throughout the entire state. And we do it through multiple umbrellas. The Maryland Sports Commission, which I founded in 2008, when I was brought here by Governor Martin O'Malley, and then it's carried over multiple administrations now, which I'm very excited about, is to help our communities across the state that find economic drive through sport, tourism, and live events, and making sure we find resources and tools that help them do it at a very high level and compete against our national competitors across the country and internationally. And then we created a nonprofit arm back in 2019 to ensure that we could own and manage some of our own product as well, because events like the Maryland 5-star and the Maryland Cycle Class, it's a competitive process. And when you go through a competitive process like that, the last thing you want to do is hand it off to someone. There's a pride factor. There's an internal, we spent 5 years bidding on this stinking thing. We want to now see it come to light. So we now own and manage some of our product, and we put together a really good team of folks to manage both the 5-star and the Cycling Classic. Then we have the AA Junior Olympics coming in 28 and 32, so cool. The largest amateur sport, multi-sporting event in the United States, and some would say in the world, coming to the central part of Maryland here in 28 and 32 Olympic years, which means that participation will be up because everybody wants to be the next Michael Phelps, wants to be the next Katie Ledecky, wants to be the next Dominic Dodge. So our numbers will always be grander because we're over the Olympic year. So we're touching everything and creating resources and toolkits that are important to making sure sports thrive in the state.
Well, that's the cool thing to me. I think a lot of people forget the breadth of the events that you're bringing to our state. It's, your mind immediately goes to the huge English Premier League soccer matches, the BMW Championship golf tournament. But, all these other events, whether it's equestrian to the cycling, which is just world-class cool stuff, to youth events. I mean, how important is it to you guys to have that sort of scope of type of event? And not only that, be when you're truly statewide. I think people think Baltimore, maybe a little north, but Eastern Shore, down PG County, Montgomery County, statewide, truly. Like, how important is you to stay focused on making sure the entire state is blanketed?
Oh, it's a huge part of the responsibility. Obviously we have our economic engines, and you mentioned them. You have the Eastern Shore, especially during the summer season. You have Garrett County on the west during the winter season. Then you have the I-95 corridor, the gut. So our responsibility is to make sure the entire state is touched. And we've proven that factor over and over and over again. Everything from doing the Canoe Slalom World Championships out at Askey up in Garrett County on top of the mountain in 2014 to bringing the Duke tour to Ocean City and creating the beach event over in Ocean City, and then helping them with some other, sand soccer and some other events there. And then we're up in, Cecil County with the 5-star, so we're up in the northeast quadrant of the state. And then we're down in Prince George's County with the English Premier League this summer. And then, NCAA lacrosse, Army, Navy, and those things that have happened in Baltimore. And then things that surround, like, we just helped out with a huge sailing event down in Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, the Military Bowl. And then we're down in Frederick with Quidditch, sport that not everybody, knows about. And then we're out in Montgomery County with rugby and soccer and all that stuff at the Soccerplex. So we truly touch the entire state with an event at some time or another, whether that is the cycling class, for example, that happens. It's in Baltimore County and Baltimore City, but lo and behold, it goes into Carroll County. Part of the route, a couple miles, but it does touch Carroll County. And we've been in Hartford, obviously, with our friends at Ripken, back in the day, also with Cedar Lane up there doing things in that nature. So there is not a county in this state that we have not touched with a sports-related activity, to date, whether it's direct competition or, crossover, because competition has to lean into that. I mean, we touched Kent, we touched Somerset, you name the county, we've been in it.
It's really cool. I'll let Jen get a word in edgewise. But first, we're with Terry Hasseltine. He is the executive director of the Maryland Sports Commission and a good friend of Maroon PR. We were having a beer on the Maroon PR No Spin is a 4-letter word podcast. Tripping over my new words. My first time back in a couple of weeks. Bear with me. Terry, before I let Jen get a word in here, I wanted to ask you about the uniqueness of this office, because last time you and I were speaking, I was surprised to learn that while people do this for multiple states, it's only us in Utah that have a freestanding office that's dedicated to this activity. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so when I use the term freestanding, means that we not only provide resources and tools to partners across the state, we actually own, operate, and create our own events and put them on and host them. So a lot of the states, with the exception of Utah, have a lot of the systems that we have in place, but they don't physically own an activity. They don't physically, own the cycling classic or own they're granting or they're providing resources to that, or they're just strictly a name and marketing sake. They say that they're in the sport tourism space and they're using it through, whether it's the Office of Tourism, whether it's economic development or their commerce department. It's a marketing tool to show that their doors are open for, opportunities in the sports space. But when you come here, the fact that the state is actually leading the charge on a lot of these efforts and bringing our partners to the table is a unique animal. It's usually the other way around, where our partners are then trying to seek out all these tools and efforts from the state, and they're trying to, squeeze a triangle into a circle and a circle into a triangle. They're just trying to make the pegs work. Here, we have a full toolkit of opportunities, a full resource kit to help our partners be successful from the get-go, or bringing things to our partners so they can jump on board and get on the bus with us, and we lead the charge. So what's really neat about our office is we can either sit in the driver's seat, we can sit in the first row, or if you just want to sit in the back and, take it all in, the back seat's good too. Sometimes I prefer the back seat.
Yeah, that's what I always find fascinating. So I guess your biggest partners across the state would be the tourism boards or the government, right? So, having those great relationships are probably, pretty important. Can you talk a little bit about the process of, are they finding events? Are you finding events? Or are you both collaboratively finding an event for a county?
Well, we created an initiative when I first started called Team Maryland. And the function of Team Maryland is to collaboratively sell the state of Maryland as a sports event and tourism destination through sports. So we work in both directions, where our partners are bringing things to us to explore and evaluate with them, or we're bringing things to them because we have the connection, or, it's been 30-something years I've been at this, so there's people out there in the space, that you just naturally migrate to. So it's a combination. We go to trade shows together. We travel together. We host site visits together. Our Team Maryland partnership, we have 18 partners in it. We only have 24 counties. Yeah. So, those 18 partners working in concert. What's really great about the Team Maryland partnership, if you can't do it here, maybe we can do it there. But we're also making sure that we're looking and evaluating everything in Maryland before we let our competitors have hold of it. Right. And we're also not afraid to say, hey, to our competitors, as long as it's not bordering our state, hey, we think you would have the tremendous, opportunity to host this event. California, Washington. We do support, obviously, the DMV, because we do things with, our friends in Virginia and our friends down in the district, as well as Pennsylvania and Delaware and Southern New Jersey, especially when it comes to our 5-star event.
And how about, what do you see most recently? We hear a lot about pickleball facilities. all these newer kind of like backyard game type sports? Have you seen anything new coming down?
Pickleball has taken off like crazy. I thought it was interesting when 2007 I was part of the group that hosted the senior games in Louisville, Kentucky, and pickleball was our demo sport that year. Yeah. And now it's a craze. It's the next social event, between competition. But you notice a lot of the places that are building pickleball courts are also creating social platforms too. There's a restaurant or a bar inside. Right. So it's your next really social event. Some people say it's going to take on John's favorite sport of golf. But also people are saying cycling is the new golf. Because of COVID, what couldn't you buy? You couldn't buy a bike during COVID.
Right.
And so people are saying, cycling's the new golf.
I'm guessing it's less frustrating than golf. Right?
Well, the thing you have with cycling, especially if you're on the roads, is, especially this area, potholes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you're watching out for potholes.
Yeah.
That hole you're trying to find on the golf course.
That's right.
Well, around here, they're pretty prevalent, so you're trying to avoid them.
That's a good point.
Just joke.
Terry, we're with Terry Hasseltine. Terry is the executive director of the Maryland Sports Commission. He's also the president of the Sports and Entertainment Corporation of Maryland and a good friend of ours. And we're pleased to have him here. We're also joined by Jen Renahan, our esteemed COO. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello.
And our silent but deadly producer, Emma. She's waving wildly.
Yes.
Terry, I think your journey here always makes me laugh a little bit. How did this happen? Because two things. One, I know there's a cool backstory I'm going to ask you to tell, but also just someone needs to have some vision, right? To say, let's do this. Let's bring this guy here. Let's invest in this. So tell us a little bit about your journey here.
Well, I was in the back of a bar one night, and
now that I know is actually true.
So I was in the Commonwealth of Kentucky, working with the Kentucky Sports Authority, where we had created a very robust Team Kentucky initiative, where we had partners across the entire state, selling each other, partnering with each other, and the like. And we'd just gone through an administration change at the Commonwealth level, and during that period of time, I got a phone call from the governor's office here in Maryland asking me if I was going to apply for the job. And of course I was like, apply for what job? I didn't know there was a job. And then finally it came to fruition where I finally saw the job description and what they were looking for and to pursue. And then I think the interesting part of this story is that my name came to the surface because of someone I barely knew. He had done a presentation to, at that time, the O'Malley administration about the value of sport tourism, sports and live events, and Maryland really hitting the marketplace. And Jack Swarbrick, AD at Notre Dame, at that time he was the chair of the Indiana Sports Corp, said, "Go get the guy from Kentucky." And then lo and behold, I was that guy from Kentucky. And so here I am, got here in July of 2008. Going on 15 years now, and the like. And the reason I know that is because my daughter Addie was 3 months old when we moved here. Wow. So it's kind of one of the triggers. I got married in 2000, so I remember my anniversary. I also remember my anniversary at work because of where my daughter is in age. So kind of that cool thing. But then under that administration, we were able to get the anchors of this thing settled. And I think the unique thing for me that I found very interesting is like right out of the gate, we hit success. We hit the Chelsea AC Milan soccer match. Kind of the DO Tour was fizzling out on the complex, and they looked to me to figure out what was going to be the next thing. And I've been working behind the scenes on this potential soccer activity. And when the DO Tour had to move, lo and behold, they moved out of state for back, and then we brought them back to Ocean City. Right. The date opened up for when I needed to put the soccer match in the building. And so we put Chelsea AC Milan in the building in July of 2009 to the largest sporting event still in M&T Bank Stadium history.
Wow, really?
Wow.
So sporting event.
Yeah, sporting event.
Yes.
Sporting event because U2 concert was a little bigger, but they could use the entire stadium.
That's really cool. Did Jack ever know that he influences?
So Jack and I run into each other periodically at various conferences and trade shows, especially because of his role in collegiate athletics and his tie to the Olympic Committee. We'll see each other at a few conferences that are tied to the Olympic movement. And he and I have had a beer over the conversation. He goes, "I just didn't know who you were. I just was reading about the work you were doing. And, when it looked to what Maryland was trying to do, he goes, you were the name that kept popping up in the circles. So he goes, that's why I left with that comment. He goes, now it's nice to put a face and a name together. And anybody who knows me, I'm a huge Notre Dame Irish football fan. So go Irish, beat Navy.
I actually you probably don't remember this, but I was right shortly after you were hired, I reached out to you and we met you weren't hiring at the time, but I was at the aquarium looking to go somewhere else. And we met, and you were like, just because you were probably meeting people and whatever, and you weren't hiring anyone at the time.
I went on I call it the state tour, where I think I met every citizen in the state of Maryland.
It was awesome.
Every road, went to every venue. And I was very fortunate because when we moved here, my wife was able to stay home with Addie and Elena. And so I had a little bit more autonomy to get out and really do things. Now, as life has gone on, kids grown, wife went back to work, still get to do a lot of things, but I'm a little bit more in control of that, where I was being programmed crazy.
I mean, your job is just like ours, and, our tagline here is we drive growth through relationships, and everything's about relationships, and that rings true for, how you had to establish yourself, and to this day. Do you have, a story or anything about like a good relationship outside of the one we just talked about, bringing an event here or something that came back full circle?
Oh, I think the interesting part, and I wouldn't say full circle, but I have met some really fantastic people across the state of Maryland during this journey. And it's interesting, you mentioned earlier, like the ebb and flows, so like people you might have met early on, they disappeared, and then all of a sudden you reconnect with them, and they're in different roles or in different positions. So I've had a lot of that throughout my time here in Maryland. I mean, I have people who still to this day, I haven't seen like Clarence Bishop for many years, but he still touches base with me on LinkedIn just to see how things are going. Yeah. I mean, he was the guy that, when I got hired, threw the baseball cap on my head, said, welcome to the team kind of approach. So there are a lot of people that I have mutual respect for in the space. But I think what I find really intriguing is during my time here in Maryland, my connection with the audience out into the industry has grown stronger. Yeah. A lot more respect for what we all do in the space. The fact that our industry continues to grow. I get to be a leader in that space. I chaired the National Association while I was in Maryland in 13 and 14, so that was really cool. And then I was just appointed to serve on the International Association Event Host, which is an international body of organizations awesome. Making up of multiple countries across the globe that are in the sports event space and sharing best practices. So I was just appointed by Sports ETA, which is formerly the National Association of Sports Commission, to serve on that capacity. So growing a reputation and someone who does what he says he's going to do, and keeping the friendships and making sure that we're keeping all those balls up in the air, and hopefully nothing hits the ground that's too damaging.
Oh, that's great. And I want to talk a little bit about the event that we're fortunate enough to be working on. But first, I just want to, you've achieved so much since you come here. And on behalf of a Marylander, thank you. I mean, it's been great, and it's really exciting for all of us and doing great things for the state. I'm just going to ask you the impossible question. Is there like one or two that you're most proud of? It sounds like certainly the AC Milan match, because it really showed you were here to kick ass and hit the ground running. But like, is there any others that pop into mind?
Well, I know we're going to get into it. I mean, obviously, getting the opportunity to host the Maryland 5-Star, it, has a significant, pride factor for me, because it jump-started a lot of things. One, it jump-started a process that we thought would never end. It jump-started a development project up in the north, east part of the state at Fair Hill to build brand new turf course, the steeplechasing course, the timber course, and the state-of-the-art cross-country course. It also took an event where we were bidding originally on the 4-star to a 5-star, so we had to go through that little crux. We competed against 5 or 6 other, equestrian facilities across the country to become one of only 7 in the world. The only other one in North America is Kentucky, which is where where I came from, so I had a little familiarity with it. But then to allow us to spur and create the Sport and Entertainment Corporation, because again, the process went on, and it allowed us to really look at what the long-term vision of what we want to do here in Maryland through sports. You had to have the government side, which is that sports commission side, where our grant programs reside, where our ability to get down into Annapolis and work with legislators and really resides. That's that part where people are like, government, and I'm like going, yeah, but that's a tool and a resource for our partners that we have a direct access to offices and agencies that we need to have. But we also had to have the autonomy to be able to run at the speed of sport. You understand, sitting in this room, you guys know that contracts can happen overnight. You know that you have to maybe deliver something tomorrow that only came to you tonight. Yeah. And you can't do that in the guise of government-esque only environments. So being able to create that, and the 5-star win of that bid allowed us to really put our arms out there and say, hey, we're more than just this, tool for government. We are this tool that can now help you assist, manage, and operate events, market them, promote them, etc. And the fact that we survived COVID.
Yeah.
I mean, a fledgling nonprofit organization that was created in 2019, 6 months after opening door, we get slammed with COVID. And here we are hosting 2 major international sporting events with that exact agency. So you have the 5-star, which is an event, obviously, we won through a very competitive bid process. And then we created the Maryland Cycling Classic, which is, the highest ranked professional cycling event, road racing event in North America in only the second year.
Right.
And we have 7 Tour de France teams competing in this year's cycling classic over Labor Day weekend. Just had 2 more commit here during the tour itself. So the fact that here we are carrying up 2 of the highest level competitions on an international sporting level with an organization that you didn't even know was going to survive because it opened its door 6 months before COVID. Yeah, that's a very proud moment. And I just hope we can maintain the energy and the level of expectation that people have placed on us and that we've placed on ourselves too.
Well, I think it's always funny as a business owner. I always like to say, it sounds weird saying it, but kind of fear in some regards is a great driver. It's a great motivator because you feel you're responsible for people and you're responsible for your family and you're responsible in your case for a state. And, I think just, having that continued, I would say most people that run organizations there is a little bit of underlying angst that keeps them driving. It's certainly the will to succeed and all that, but it's also the bigger you get, the more successful you get, the more you have to drive yourself to maintain that level. And you certainly have done that.
I appreciate that.
No, it's great. And, speaking a little bit about the Maryland 5-star, full disclosure, we are the PR firm for the Maryland 5-star, and we're excited to be a part of it, working with Terry's team and the 5-star team. It's been great. It just began. And, the equestrian universe is an interesting one, right? Because I think people could fall into well, I'm not really a horse person, right, but this is so much more than that. It's a big party. It's these beautiful animals. It's one of 7 of these events you alluded to earlier in the entire world of this caliber. Bringing this to Maryland, I mean, why did they pick Maryland? What happened? What was the tipping point? Because I have to imagine in that universe, expansion is in pretty big demand.
So what you have going on with the Maryland 5-star, and I think part of the rationale they picked us, 1, we had a plan.
Yeah. Right.
And 2, we had multiple sectors of the business world aligned. We had government, we had some support from the private sector and the corporate community, then we had the volunteer base. But we also had a long-term history of hosting a 3-star event with the Fairhill International Group. So we had all the layers to this beautiful cake. And, the problem is that we had to figure out a way to make it one unified cake. And it didn't have to be a layered cake. It had to be one cake. And that's still a little bit of the challenge is that we're trying to still take away some of the layers to make this a very, seamless, and whatever. So when it's all said and done, the equestrian space is probably the most unique and the most challenging and the most demanding genre of sport that I've worked in. However, it also comes with some of the biggest rewards. You hit it on the head. The 5-star is dressage, cross country, and show jumping, the triathlon of equestrian. But what's really cool about it? You and I would compete on equal footing.
Right.
Men and women compete because the horse is the athlete.
Right.
The person riding the horse is commanding the attention of the horse. But men and women compete on equal footing. Male and female horses compete on equal footing when it comes to the competition. And I can tell you right now, I would not do half the stuff that those horses do on cross-country day. Even if I had a ladder or was shot out of the cannon, I wouldn't do half that stuff. And do it over 4.5 miles.
Yeah. I think people, just equate it to, racing. It's racing. There's racing and there's, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just really
educating because our state's familiar with what they have in the Big Dog and the Preakness, and which is wonderful. But this is totally different. It's beautiful animals doing amazing things, and it's a great atmosphere on a beautiful piece of land. It's just a terrific way to spend 4 days, and it's definitely encourage you to check out Maryland 5-star, the number 5, Maryland number 5star.us, and learn all about it, because it's going to be a great weekend. Terry, before we let you go, one thing like I always admired about you, and Jen alluded to this earlier, was your ability to juggle a lot. You have a very small team, like full-time team, right? It's you and Ash and Graham, is it?
Yeah,
and
that's on the sports commission.
Yeah, and the sports commission side. And, but you have a way of utilizing, because you're so good at maintaining relationships, utilizing the people bringing in people when you can and when you should. Half your battle to me, looking out from the outside in, is juggling all this to make sure it works. How do you do that? Was that innate? Did you learn that over time? Is that just more one of those God-given skill sets? What's that about?
I think it's honestly a combo pack. I was blessed. I'm the youngest of 4 boys. My parents instilled a work ethic in all of us. All of us have found success in our industries at a very high level. We're self-motivated. But I think you hit right on the early part of the question. It's relationships, finding friends, finding people, making sure that, you're giving back to those folks as well. It's not just a complete take environment. And that part of it, I think, is some natural skill, but just kind of it's in you, and you work it, and you read the environment. I think I've been pretty good at trying to read the environment, trying to be in front of some of the changing, dynamics out in the space. But, it's also about listening. One of the things that I have truly found, probably one of my better skills, even though I like to talk a lot, is I talk and listen, and hearing what people truly have to say about their sport or about their community or whatever, and then being able to find the dynamic piece of opportunity that allows you then to dive in and really make an impact. So just do my darndest. And like I said, I'm lucky to have good friends. I'm, good colleagues in the industry. We got each other's backs, and no one wants to see me fall down the mountain, and I don't want to see you fall down the mountain. So the goal is that if we can continue to keep rising everybody up together, we're going to be very successful. And that's kind of my mantra on things.
Last thing I want to ask you, and I'll let Jen if she has one more, but last thing I want to ask you is, like, the one challenge I always have, and I think, people leading companies and organizations have, is stopping and looking back and reflecting and kind of appreciating where you started, where you came from, like where you started. Came in here and it's like, what's this guy doing? Who the hell is this guy? He's going to do what? And then you look now, and it's a flood of opportunity because of what you've built here. Do you ever step back and reflect on where you've come from, since putting even Kentucky aside, but since you've come here?
Oh yeah, I am one who likes to reflect. I like to, joke with the team and say, especially Ashley. Ashley's been with me from the get-go.
Yep.
She started as an intern. She, rose up in the ranks. She's done some tremendous work, and like going, you remember when you walked in the office for the first time, and I was like, all right, she's willing to do this, and I need someone that can help me, and we're going to go at this and see where it goes. And then hopefully my work ethic and some of my energy then spun off, and like I said, she's doing some tremendous things in this space. But looking back and reflecting is half the battle, because don't want history to repeat itself in some ways, but in some ways you want it to repeat itself, because if you've done well, the right building blocks, you need to celebrate those building blocks, because we just celebrated back in 2009 as our 10th year anniversary. And of course we put out this really beautiful 10th year anniversary piece, and then COVID hit. It actually hit our office the day that shut everything down.
God.
So we didn't have a chance to really share this beautiful piece. So as a team during COVID, we talked about the milestones, and then everything that was spelled out in that beautiful 10-year anniversary piece was our future objective. We've already accomplished.
Wow.
All right.
Awesome.
That was our next 10-year goal. We've already achieved in 2023. So it's like create a grant program, both at the youth and amateur level as well as the major events. Guess what we have? We have the Youth and Amateur Michael Aaron Bush Fund. Guess what we have? The Major Events Fund.
Yeah.
Those two. Bring the 5-star to fruition. Make sure it occurs. We're in our 3rd year. Bring a major international sporting event outside of the equation. Cycling, here it is. Bid on the World Cup. make sure we make Baltimore and the state of Maryland relevant in the World Cup movement. We did it. I mean, we were right there on the cusp.
Yeah.
We changed the
You
dynamic.
have to be proud of that.
Very proud of the effort that everybody
yes,
that we
it was
assembled to work on that effort. And I can tell you right now, we just had a site visit on another part of that event that's happening in 26 in North America. And the people came back and said, we should have picked you guys, because when we hosted them again, no grudge, no nothing,
Right.
rolled up our sleeves, showed them what they needed to see, and we showcased why Maryland was the site that they needed to choose. But we all know, and sometimes in those big events, things, and people play a role that change the factors of how things are determined. And we got bit, and but we move on.
I always maintain you learn a lot from your defeats, right? And you go through the process, and a lot of things happen for a reason. You might not realize it or appreciate it at the time, but I think there's a plan, and it's not part of it. That's okay. And one other thing, Ashley is tremendous. We love working with her. I'm really glad you didn't hire Jen back when she interviewed with you, because now she wouldn't be
now,
here.
see?
Yeah, it all works out.
God,
Sure, she was
I knew this was
disappointed.
going to happen.
It all,
It's like when I was doing all that.
Yeah.
I was going to end up with John.
she ended up at Stanley DeWalt, Black & Decker, and then here. And
See, I knew
boom,
that.
just like that. But I love that you guys do take a time and reflect and celebrate. I'm guilty of not doing that nearly enough, and need to do more of that. But Terry, thank you.
My pleasure.
Really appreciate you making time. Coming to our office. We're on the verge of our office move around the corner. The next pod will be there. But Terry walked in here and thought we went out of business. So luckily I was able to tell him
Nothing
that
like
was not
hiring
the
a
case.
company going out of business.
Yeah, that's right. This was Terry Hasseltine. He's the executive director of the Maryland Sports Commission, the president of the Sports and Entertainment Corporation of Maryland, and a good friend, and we appreciate him. Thank you for listening to Spin is a 4-letter word. Let's have a beer. Cheers. Thanks for listening to Spin is a 4-letter word. If you like what you hear today, please subscribe. Send us your feedback too. We want this to be interesting for everybody. And give us a follow @MaroonPR on Twitter and LinkedIn.